Good afternoon. This is another day. Today we are going to discuss the political history of Kenya from, I think, from independence. That would be better. Maybe a little bit pre-independence than independence and after, up to the Gen Z demonstrations. Or maybe, up to the Gen Z demonstration, or maybe up to the current political situations. But before we start, I would like you to understand that it's not going to be simple as you think, and it's not going to be easy. It is going to be hard work. When I say hard work, I don't mean that you have to take up djembe or a panga or toil. What I'm trying to say is you have to do a lot of deep thinking. You have to do a lot of thinking. Don't be lazy in thinking, because unless you think hard, you might not understand some of the things that we're going to discuss. It's going to be hard work because you have to do a lot of research. I'll just give highlights, and in case there are any questions, the people around here will ask the questions, and then we will try and elaborate to the details of what they would like elaborated. Otherwise, my name is Musembe Ndenge. I'm speaking from the Musembe Ndenge Kinani farm. Today is a beautiful day, and we have just taken our lunch, and we are ready to go. So let's start. I will start with what we call the Lancaster Conference. The Lancaster Conference was in the early 60s. That is, I think, 60, 61, 62, 63, around that period. And that's when the Kenyan script was written. The Kenyan script has been followed very, 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 very well by the political class. I heard one of the political or presidential aspirants or political bigwigs in Kenya calling themselves, calling the people who have been in politics for a while as the political legacy. I don't understand why he's doing that, because he has joined the bandwagon. So we will just call them political interested people or political people. And I think everybody should be political. If you are apolitical, you will realize that things will go according to the political maneuvers or the political undertakings. Therefore, when these people went to the Lancaster House conference, there were a selected few who represented political parties, that is KANU and KADU. The rest of the people were actually selected from what you would call the parliament, but then it used to be called the Legislative Council or the LegCo. The Legislative Council was made up of Africans and Europeans and Asians. We had people like the D'Souza's, we have the Michael Brandels, we have the George Ndenges, and the rest. In that scenario, then they were about, I think, 33 elected members of the Legislative Council who went to the conference. There was a person who was advising them. This person, I think, had been brought in from America. He was a black American. He's called, I think, somebody Marshall. So then the script was written. I was told not to hit the table, but I've just done that. So Maurice, you'll have to excuse me for that. But let's continue. When they went to the conference, the British had called this conference because now they were very worried about the Mau Mau. The Mau Mau had started in the early 50s. I think it's called the Anavir. That was declared in 1952. And then that's when the Mau Mau sprang. The Mau Mau were Kenyans, and majority of these Kenyans were from all over the country, but the Mau Mau specifically that we know of, that are been documented in the historical books, are the actually Central Kenya people, Central Province, part of Eastern Province, former, because you'll find Merus there, you'll find Ambians there, people from Embu, you'll find a few Akambas there, you'll find a few Luos who had come up to the table. There were people like the Odedes. Okay, they didn't go to the forest, but they supported the movement. The movement was supported by a lot of Africans because there was the Kenya African Union, which was disbanded. It eventually became KANU. This was disbanded in the 52s when the state of emergency was declared. So there was a lot of arrests. People were detained. People were dislocated. When I say dislocated, I am trying just to say that people were moved. People were removed from the ancestral lands. Most of the land had been grabbed. And that's what we call if you go back into your history, you remember the Devonshire White Paper. That talks about the White Islands. The White Islands go up to north, up to the Rift Valley. That's where you have the coffee, the tea plantations in Kericho and this area. And that area, the Nandi Hills, up to the Mount Kenya regions. That's where the coffee was done. You go up to places like Kangundo, there was coffee and all that. I mean, I'm talking where the Mzungu had interest. Then there were the ranches. You talk of the Syokimau's of then, of today, I mean. The Lukenyas, the Konza. You have heard of Konza City. All these were ranches. That's how the Nani was established, the Kenya Meat Commission. These were ranches. I would like you to do a little research and find out about the Kapiti Plains, because Kapiti Plains, that land was not, there was not given back to the Africans. Anyway, let's go back to Lancaster. So when these people went to the Lancaster House Conference, I am saying that the British or the white people who were representing the white people in Kenya, who were also actually, I would say, trustees of the British government, decided that the best thing to deal with the Africans, because they are fighting for land, is to give the few leaders, people in leadership, or the few Africans who are at the meeting, a piece of land, or give them, or settle them in the land. And then they came up with the document or with the agreement of a willing seller, a willing buyer. That's where the terminology came of the willing buyer, willing seller. So the people agreed. Most of the Africans who were in the leadership positions, who were ready to be compromised, actually were compromised. So they were given mashamba or some land. So they stopped talking about the shamba, because this was crafted by Mr. Michael Brandel with the British government. They said if you give these people land, then they will stop agitating for land, and the people who are talking about land then will be compensated, given some land elsewhere, and then the people who don't want to sell the land, or the land that were at British interest, I'm talking of the Nanyukis of then, the Laikipias, where you have the 999 years lease. I'm talking about 999-year lease lands. We still have people who have leases of 999 years pieces of land. That is 1,000 years. How can you lease your country for 1,000 years? So we have that. Then we have, that was what, and we also had the Crown land, and then the African reserves. The Africans who had been removed from the White Islands, or the good lands, the arable lands, the lands that had been allocated to we used to call them shambas. They used to be called shambas, the good shambas, the White Islands, the farms, the British farms, and that's these are these are the Lenana school. The Lenana school. The Lenana school. That's what the Duke of York. The Duke of York. The Duke of York. That's where the sons and children of the white farmers that went to school. And then there was the Princess of Wales. That's a Nairobi school. The Nairobi school, these were the children of the British civil servants. Those went to Nairobi school, and then the farmers went to Duke of York. Anyway, this changed after independence. So when they went there, then they agreed, and the person leading this African group were people like Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Toroitich Arap Moi, that's Daniel. There were people like Ronald Ngala. There were people like the Tom Mboya. There was the Jaramogi Oginga Oginga. There was the James Gishurus. All these people, if you go back into your history, you will see them. They were all allocated a piece of land one way or another, or they were compensated one way or another. And that's why you hear that the land issue has kind of not been discussed further after that, because it came back up in the 1999 when the Ndongo Land Commission report was enacted or was formed to because there was a lot of land grabbing. We used to call it land grabbing. All right, from 1963 then, we have now been declared an independent country. That means administratively we have our own government, the African government. Now that is led by Jomo Kenyatta. So there is KANU and KADU. There was a general election in 1963. KANU came out the winner. Actually, there was a small split in KANU, and there was a party called African something People's Party. African People's Party. The APP, that was led by Paul Ngei. Paul Joseph Ngei was the leader of the APP. So there were three parties that went to the election. There was a KANU, there was KADU, and there was APP. KANU, as you remember, is the Kenya African National Union, and KADU was the Kenya African Democratic Union. That's where Kina Martin Chikuku we are talking big. Actually, Martin Chikuku was the last person to leave KADU. Martin Chikuku, very famous politician in Kenya. He was one of the people who really fought very hard for the for the masses. He used to call himself the watchman of the people. From 1963 up to sometime in, I think in the 80s or early 90s, and then that's when he got out of the scene. Otherwise, like I said, so there were elections. Then in 1965, not 1965, in 1964, Kenya became a republic. You know, when we got independence, when the British handed over the government, we were still under the British, because Kenyatta became the prime minister, but the head of state was still the Queen of England. But in 1964, then we became a republic. The KADU people were convinced. I'm talking Ronald Ngala and people like Daniel Arap Moi and Kinamasinde Muliro. They all agreed with Kenyatta somehow. I don't know whether they were given a piece of land each or whatever. But this is the same group that was in Lancaster. They know the script. They know the script. One of my friends, one of my political friends of those days, tells me that these were the sweet boys. They were not sweet because they are sweet to the British idea. They were sweet to the British idea. Then there were people who were bitter to the British idea. These are people like Bildad Kagia of Murang'a. Bildad Kagia did not agree, although he was elected in the 1963 elections, and people like also Jaramogi Oginga Oginga. You remember he even came up with a book in 1966 that says, "Not yet Uhuru." That is Raila's father. If you look at the 1966 Limuru conference, there was another disagreement. Anyway, let me go back to 64. 1964 then, here we agree. KANU becomes part of KANU. They cross the floor and they are accommodated in KANU. And KANU now becomes Kenya becomes a one-party state because the APP, I think, had gone back already. They had already jumped ship and gone back to KANU. So we have the Limuru Conference in 1966. This is another defining moment because that's where now they wanted to create other people because there was a craftsman, a political craftsman who was Thomas Joseph Mboya. Thomas Joseph Odhiambo Mboya. Very, very, very clever when it comes to politics of deceit. As a matter of fact, he was a trade unionist. I happened to have heard of him when I was a small boy at one of the election campaigns during the 1963 elections. I heard Mboya speak, and he was quite eloquent. He was vying for the Nairobi seat, and they were vying with somebody called Dr. Waiyaki, Monywa Waiyaki. Dr. Monywa Waiyaki, former, he later became a foreign affairs minister. Anyway, let me tell you what I heard Mboya say. In a political rally, the place called now Kimathi Estate, that area was a bit bushy. Jerusalem Estate had been made. We used to live in Bahati. So that area, Kimathi Estate is, was a big field, and there was a political rally there in 1963. And I heard Mboya speak. So when Mboya was speaking, he was holding the Taifa Leo. Taifa Leo was a newspaper, a Swahili newspaper. And when his turn came to speak or to woo the voters, or campaign for that matter, he woke up and he came to the dais and he said, Arambe! People said whatever they said. I can't remember. I was I was about 8 years old, I think. Less than 8. Yeah, I was about 8 years old. So I could see what was going on. So he stood up and he said, Mimi nashangaa sana. I'm very surprised. Watu wamesoma, tumepeleka watu mashule, watu wamesoma, wengine ni madaktari. We have taken people to school. Some of them are doctors. And some of us who did not go very far in school, wale ambao sisi hatukusoma sana, tunatetea wafanyikazi, that is a trade unionist. Tunatetea wafanyikazi. We've been fighting for the peoples, for the laborers, for the workers, are the ones who should who should continue to fight for the workers and for the people and for the citizens of Mwananchi. Then he said the punchline. I want to give you the punchline. The punchline was, I've been a trade unionist. I've always been fighting for the people. I'm wondering, people who are so educated, people who are even medical doctors, like my friend here, Dr. Monywa Waiyaki, Africans are dying now at the King George Hospital. That is Kenyatta Hospital then. It will be called King George Hospital. People are dying at King George Hospital, and Dr. Monywa Waiyaki is just sitting here. Instead of helping people there, he's coming here, he wants to take my job. Oh wow, people really went with relation and everything. Because now, hey, he is a doctor. What is the doctor doing in politics? So politics was not supposed to be for doctors, according to Tom Mboya and according to the people then. Anyway, that is the punchline that I want you to get. So Mboya was very eloquent, and he could fight for his political seat. Actually, he won in that election. Monywa did not win, but then it was divided, and Monywa went and vied in Mathare. He became an MP in Mathare, and then he also became a member of parliament, and eventually a minister of foreign affairs. Anyway, going back to my story, 1966, Mboya told Kenyatta, you know, Mzee, some of these people who you have brought from Kanu, and even some people here who we were with together in Kanu, they are trying to relinquish your power. They are trying to cut down your power. They want to be they don't want you to be powerful. And that's why they are coming up with this idea of provincial political heads. I don't understand why we need more than one vice president. Why should we have I don't see why we should have one powerful vice president for us to neutralize the powers of the vice president, because then Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was very powerful. He was actually in charge of the immigration. He was actually importing a lot of deporting a lot of Wazungus and Asians who did not agree with the Kenyan dream then of Africanization. So he looked very powerful. So and then you see Mboya wanted to be also as powerful. But now Mboya's work was economic planning and development, where a lot of his work was not feasible on a daily basis. So, and you see politicians always want to be popular. They want to be seen in the newspaper on a regular basis. But Nani was appearing more than him, Nani Jaramogi. So he wanted to cut the powers of the president. So they came up with the idea that every province should have a vice president, a Kanu vice president. We have a Kanu vice president in Eastern Province, a Kanu vice president in Northeastern Province, although it was more neglected during the Kenyatta era. And then there was a vice president for Western Province, a vice president for the Nyanza region, a vice president for the Coast region, and a vice president for the Central Kenya. So it became a little bit nasty. So it did not sit well with the Jaramogi. So he quit Kanu, and that's the birth of KPU. So we have now another party. Now the single party Kanu has been challenged. So we have the Kenya People's Union, KPU, Dume. They used to do this, thumbs up. Dume, Dume, Dume. Dume became powerful. Actually, the vice president for Dume was from Ukambani. He was a senator, the senator from Machakos, the first senator from Machakos. You know, people think that senators came the other day. No, senators were there. Actually, only the Senate was kind of merged, because it's a parliament. It was merged with the National Assembly. So the senators were incorporated into members of parliament. So the senator for Machakos then was Mwasa Ndula. Mwasa Ndula was the senator for Machakos. So Mwasa Ndula was the vice chairman of KPU. Then there was the Kinakagia and some people from a lot of MPs from Nyanza. They crossed over. Then there was we call it the little general election. People like J.D. Kali, the member for Kasi then, and many others. He was a freedom fighter also. J.D. Kali. These are people you should check. These are some of the people you don't want to. The historians or the Kenyan narrative or the British script does not agree for them to have prominence. So you will find most of you will not know much about these people, but these were very, very powerful people in the first parliament. Actually, J.D. Kali was the chief whip of Kanu then. Yeah, these were very powerful people. J.D. Kali, people like I said Kagia. These were people who went to KPU now. KPU became a formidable force in politics. So the Mboya and company with the advice of the Attorney General then, very powerful Attorney General called Charles Njonjo, advised the president that the best thing, because these people have now left Kanu, they must relinquish and their seats and go back to the people and be elected again. So when you hear somebody is jumping gun coming from a political party and and going to another political party. In essence, he should go back for freshly election, because the people who elected him on a different ticket. Now he has to come up with a different ticket. So the KPU election is done, and most of the people who had crossed over, and the government made sure that they did not come back. But majority of them came back, especially the ones from Nyanza, because now KPU became like a tribal thing. That's how now the proper tribal politics starts. KANU becomes the Kiambu Mafia. KPU becomes the Luo Party, or the Western Kenya Party. It's incorporating a lot of people like Masinda Muliro now. No, Masinda remained in KANU actually. Masinda Muliro remained in KANU. But now Jaramogi Oginga goes with a lot of people from Western Kenya. I'm talking about the Kisii. There was a very powerful Kisii, was a minister that used to be called Lawrence Sagini. Anyway, up to 1969, then 69, we had what we call the power now. Now 69, that's why now Mboya is killed, because the Kiambu Mafia actually did an offing, and then they decided that the leadership of Kenya should never cross the Chania River, and there was a powerful offing. All the people from the Gema had to take off, and I will continue from there. Thank you very much. We'll continue from Othi and the assassination of Tom Mboya. Okay, that's the little history of Kenya just before the Othi. Thank you very much.